Hello everybody, welcome to the channel and welcome back to another video. This one's going to be a little bit different in that I'm not going to be talking about this awesome Brutalis Dreadnought that I'm painting. I'm actually going to be talking about how painting Blood Angels made me a better painter and what I learned from them. Now the lessons that I'm going to go through could equally be learned from painting Ultramarines or Orcs, but I learned it painting Blood Angels, hence the title of the video. A little bit of background for those who don't know, Blood Angels were my second Space Marine army. My first army, the Voidwalkers, are ones you don't see very much because they were painted in the original Games Workshop style. You know, the version that they show you on YouTube where you have to do base coat, highlight, shade, all that good stuff. Though not in that order. The reason I decided to go for Blood Angels is that I thought they'd be easier to paint and I was fed up of edge highlighting all the time. These days I love it, but I found painting those Voidwalkers really hard at the beginning. And that'll bring us actually fairly nicely onto our first point, which is that the Games Workshop painting method isn't that great for new painters. So here was my first lesson. You don't have to paint the way Games Workshop tells you to paint. Now that might sound really obvious, but I didn't know that at the time. Basically, Space Marines and box art were all I'd seen, and watching Duncan's tutorials online were also all I'd seen. Now his tutorials were excellent, he's obviously very talented at what he does, that's why he has his own channel now. But the specific painting style of doing base coat, then shade, then layer back up, then highlight just didn't speak to me. It was, for lack of a better term, boring and difficult. And unfortunately for me, that turned me off of painting, so for quite some time I didn't actually paint anything. It was only because of lockdown and having a backlog of Space Marines with not much else to do that I decided I should probably get them painted. But I didn't want to do them blue, I wanted to do them red. Basically, Blood Angels came about because I gave my girlfriend the choice between white armor or red armor, so white scars or Blood Angels, and she chose red. As it turns out, I now have white scars and Blood Angels, but at the time that was by the by. So I knew what the colour scheme was, and I knew that I didn't want to paint in the Games Workshop style. So this is where lesson 2 comes in, and that's that messy is fine. I started with a Zenithal Prime and then went over everything with contrast paint. This meant that I had a base coat down really quickly that already had some built-in shadows, so basically I cut out a step. Was it neat? No. But was it done? Yes. And when I added in my next steps, dry brushing, which is also fairly messy but looks great if you're going for a grimdark look, and then a tiny bit of spot colours and battle damage here and there, it ended up being fine. The third lesson is just join the cult of done. Get stuff done. Does it have to be perfect? No. Does it have to be done? I'd say yes. I think it's better to have a fully painted model that's done to an okay standard than a half-painted model with amazing eye lenses, but the rest is grey plastic. That's obviously an opinion. This all is. If your version of done is 3-colour minimum, then it's done. You've joined the cult of done. It's fine. If your version of done is getting it all the way through to non-metallic metal and highlights, then great. But at some point in between those two stages, you can also stop whenever. I stopped trying to make perfect blends and highlights here and there. I just decided when enough was enough and it looked like what it needed to. And as a result of that, I came up with a very quick painting scheme, to the point I painted one of those Outrider ATVs in less than 2 hours. And it looked fine. These lessons might be coming off as fairly simple, but to me, at the time, they weren't obvious. They were learned purely by doing, and also getting fed up with the quote-unquote proper way of doing things. Lesson 4 was enjoy the process. Now, not everyone can enjoy the process. Some people just won't enjoy painting, but for me, sticking on some music or a podcast or watching YouTube or whatever in the background whilst cranking out a few minis and feeling like I'm achieving something suddenly became, there's a reason they call it crack, almost like a drug. I'm being slightly facetious, but I started to really enjoy the process, and that made me want to paint more. And because I wanted to paint more and I was enjoying it, I started trying new things. Which, helpfully, is lesson 5. Try new things. If you're enjoying the process, and you feel like maybe you want to try something new, just go for it. It's not the end of the world if it goes wrong. If you've got a quick painting process down or a process that you enjoy, it's by no means the end of the world if you need to go back and change it again. So try that new thing, try that blend, try adding that sharp edge highlight. If you don't like it, just go back. Now there are probably more lessons. This was kind of off the cuff, just me thinking as I painted this Dreadnought, what did I learn and how did it make me a better painter? And basically they're all very simple. Just find a scheme that works, enjoy yourself, and you'll get better. But for someone who's starting out, those things aren't obvious. Those of you who've been watching closely have probably noticed that the Dreadnought I'm painting now is not done in the style that I've been talking about throughout this video, with a zenithal prime and contrast paints. It's been done using an airbrush, and using edge highlighting, and using recess shading, but with black paint, so panel lining. And that's all because of this process. Even though it's not the same process I used, this is the method I like to use to paint now, but I would have never learned that if I hadn't got through those stages of learning the lessons with the Blood Angels. It gave me the confidence to go for a fairly clean paint job. It gave me the brush control required to actually pull it off. There's always ways to improve, but compared to my initial Blood Angels, this guy is a damn sight better. However, he's not going to be out of place because that shared initial starting point is still there, using the same colours, using similar techniques. It's just refined. And I would have never learned how to do this if I hadn't started with what was basically a very messy paint job on a first lot of intercessors. This by no means means I'm going to go back and change all my intercessors. No, I'm going to leave them exactly as they are. And I like seeing the growth, the lessons learned in the flesh, seeing those intercessors, then seeing something I painted halfway through, and then seeing this. Anyway, those are just a few small lessons I learned painting Blood Angels. I hope they maybe help a few people, and if not, it's a talking point, it's of interest. Please put in the comments if you've learned anything whilst painting about the painting process, or when you learned that a certain painting style was for you or wasn't for you. I'd be really interested to hear all your experiences. Anyway, I've barely mentioned what's been on the screen because it didn't matter for this video. It's very similar to how I paint my salamanders, just with a bit of airbrush highlighting from the top to create a zenithal. The main thing is that I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to field him. The idea of him saying, if you get in the way, it's your own fault, while spinning his claws and walking towards some chaos cultists, it just makes me happy. It's just joy. So I can't wait to use him, and probably also paint a couple more for the Black Templars. Anyway, thank you to all my wonderful channel members for being absolute legends. I list their names every video, but I don't often shout them out, so guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been Sam. See you next time.